Greetings, everyone. This is Maverine, and today is April 18th on the Gregorian calendar. On the biblical calendar, today's date is the 20th of Aviv, the 20th of the first day in the biblical year. And today we're going to continue what we were sharing yesterday regarding the importance of completely disarming Iran and every Iranian proxy and like similar terrorist state from having nuclear weapons of any kind, really, but specifically nuclear weapons. On yesterday's report, we spoke about the decision that is being reported, not necessarily corroborated and confirmed by President Trump, but certainly not disputed by Prime Minister Netanyahu, that during Israel's intent to strike Iran's nuclear facilities, President Trump asked for more time for diplomacy. We went through the history of Iran's nuclear proliferation, beginning in 1967. We spoke some about and shared some of the details about the more recent years, particularly since the early 2000s, that Iran has been actively engaged in a cat and mouse game with the international oversight body known as the IAEA. And we talked about the risk to the entire world, regardless of our sociological or ideological or even religious beliefs for Iran having nuclear weapons. And today, I want to share with you a report that is being now reported via the Times of Israel and several other news sites, that through Hezbollah, which is aligned and mostly in Lebanon, and representatives of Hamas, Iran has said very clearly, and I am quoting from the most recent report, that the officials have ruled out talks of an arms handover, and quote, Iran will never agree to dismantle uranium centrifuges or to eliminate their nuclear weaponry stockpile. The term used, the word here used, is never. It's not hard to see that that is true, because that again has been their position in all of these decades since they have done what is necessary to build up their stockpile, to not only build up the stockpile of uranium and refining that uranium, and then the warheads necessary, and certainly even the delivery mechanisms necessary to launch nuclear attacks. It's also been made clear that in their hubris, with essentially saying to the free world, no, we'll never give up our nuclear arms, that Iran now finds itself in a position whereby they think themselves well positioned enough around the world and well positioned in their own nation enough to say no, to essentially thumb their noses and say no. Not only will we not negotiate with you, not only will we not allow quote unquote inspections, which they never truly have before, but we will never give up our stockpile. We are in a place where we have to say that these plans, this stockpile, cannot remain. It cannot exist. We are in a place in the world where we have to genuinely question what the intent is of the global elite who have allowed these things to proliferate, such that now the entire world is easily manipulated into giving over or ceding sovereignty of nations and the power of the individual people as a populace, such that an organization, maybe, like the UN or the World Health Organization, may step in and say that we can help you. Because despot governments like Iran have been well funded and well positioned and put in power, such that they now have weaponry that can essentially destroy entire portions of the earth. This is something to think about and consider. And the beauty of this is, we know more now than we ever have before. So real leaders who want to protect their people, who want to protect the innocent, even the innocents who are living in Muslim nations, but who are not themselves committed to jihad and self-destruction. Real leaders have everything they need to make sound decisions that, yes, we must acknowledge will bring about more war, more unnecessary pain, more unnecessary hurt. But every decision that we make, every decision that leaders make, affects the whole, which is why how we vote is incredibly important. So the question for us in the Western world, the question for us who still live in what are semblances of democratic republics like America, although they're few like America, the question for us is, will we continue to allow decisions to be made for us that place us in predicaments whereby ultimately nation states, terrorist leaders, proxy groups of terrorists can not only infiltrate our communities, but essentially have an entire nation hold the world hostage because they have nuclear weaponry, and again consider themselves favored if they murder themselves and others? Will we continue to place leaders in positions who will not and do not know how to stand against those things, to truly stem the tide? Will we, even now, continue to be more concerned about whether federal government stipends will pay for soda and candy than we are concerned about in dealing with the issues of these despot governments who would seek to annihilate any soda drinking and candy eating child who they consider a part of an infidel nation? The bottom line is that there's no appeasement again with wickedness. There can be no diplomacy with wickedness. There can be no compassion with wickedness. Wickedness must be dug up and destroyed from its root. The ideology of hatred, the ideology of radical nation and proxy groups and states and people and terrorist organizations does not change because of war. We can't be ignorant about that or naive about that. Their ideologies don't change because of war. If that were true, we wouldn't be in the situation we are in now. So the decisions have to be made based upon the protection of the greater good, the whole, rather than continuing to negotiate with and want diplomacy with ones for whom there is no true compassion and understanding, and even desire to live at peace, true peace, the peace that passes all understanding. If nothing else, the peace that allows one to decide without fear of beheading or rape, torture, maiming. The ideology that lives by the sword and lives by wickedness and evil is the ideology that must die by the sword. As we step into the next few days, we will continue to keep our eye on this and share as we are getting more insight. I encourage everyone who's listening here to prepare your homes, to prepare your family, to prepare your heart. Be it natural disasters or physical attacks, how we have taken care of ourselves and our homes must change. Our dependency upon the supply chain that is now largely controlled by those who are not based in and love American freedoms is at a tipping point. And so what we must do is find community and find relationship to change those things. For those of us who are on this journey, stay strong, stay joyful, continue to seek wisdom and understanding, and then let's move forward in the way that we know is the right way, led by the wisdom and spirit that is from the most wise one, rather than by our emotions. Again, the report says Iran will never agree to dismantle uranium centrifuges or eliminate its stockpile, according to a high-level official. And there have been 40 years of proof and truth to that statement. When the devil shows you who he is, believe him. Thank you for listening to this episode of Prophetic News Now. I will share with you in the days to come, following this story, continuing to follow this story and the question about the reopening of the Palisades nuclear facility in Michigan. I'll keep us aware and abreast as those things move forward, because there have been some delays in the reopening of that Michigan nuclear facility. But we need to be aware and ready. And again, we'll weave it all together with what's going on around the world, because we truly are now a global interdependency. Each of us, in many ways, because of the decisions that have been made, are dependent upon others. As we stand for righteousness, as we stand for true freedoms, as we stand for the populist freedom of individuals to make decisions, rather than the false ideology of socialism, the false narratives of democracy. Do your history before you attack that statement, and certainly as we stand against communism and Islamism. We'll talk soon.